Hi folks, it's FPL General here recording episode 22 of my 59th minute FPL podcast, recording on Tuesday the 18th of December. So this is going to be my last podcast until the new year. Tuesday the 18th of December, it's a good day because first of all, Jose Mourinho has been sacked by United. As a Man United fan, I'm very happy today. I was never a fan of Mourinho, so hopefully we can get in a good appointment now and bring back the good times. Another reason today is a good day is it looks like I'm going to hit 50,000 followers sometime this evening, which is just crazy. I still find it hard to believe how many people follow me for this FPL stuff. You know, it only feels like yesterday that I set up the account. I think it was May 2016 I set up the account just to interact with fellow managers. Initially just set up the Twitter account to follow Ben Dinnery like most of us do, but thanks to each and everyone who follows me. It just blows me away the amount of people that follow me. So thank you for that. If you're stumbling upon this podcast for the first time, you can follow me on Twitter at FPL General. You'll get me on Instagram as well. Post my team there most weeks. Shout outs this week: 3 59-minute appearances. Huddersfield made a double substitution in the 59th minute, so Terence Congolo and Chris Luva both make their first shout outs on the podcast, and also Brighton striker Glenn Murray, 59-minute appearance there as well, so 1 point for each of those. Glenn Murray 59 minutes. Chris Hughton seems to have a thing for these 59-minute substitutions. We know he's given Pascal Gross 2 of them already this season, so it'll be interesting to see if Glenn Murray gets any more of them as well. And we're still waiting for Gross to get his hat-trick so he can get invited onto the podcast in the new year. Moving into Gameweek 17 review, it was okay. It was 51 points. It was enough for a small green arrow. That's my fourth green arrow now in a row since the horror show in Gameweek 13. So I've gone from about 450k to around 130k. So it's a good rise over 4 weeks, and hopefully I can keep that going now over the festive period. I just did one transfer going into Gameweek 17, and then I rolled the other one because I had 2 frees. So I did Arnautovic out for Mitrovic. I brought in Mitrovic with his 4 fixtures in mind, but watching the Fulham game at the weekend, you know, I'm already thinking about getting rid of him. You know, I don't usually do that with a player, but Fulham were just so bad against West Ham that I'm actually considering shipping Mitrovic already for Danny Ings this week, but I'll talk more about that when I get to transfers. So yeah, Fabianski, Doherty, Hazard and Jimenez all did the business, and then it was frustrating from Aubameyang, captain, Mitrovic, Maddison off at half time, Salah and Robertson doing nothing despite Liverpool scoring 3, and Richarlison and Alonso disappointing as well. But again, happy with most of those players going forward, apart from maybe Mitrovic, Maddison, and there's a question mark over Salah this week as well. Wan-Bissaka and Balbuena smiling at me from the bench with 6 points. I never worry too much about having points on the bench. It's more of a good sign really that it's a strong bench, and if I do need those guys in the coming weeks, that they can do a job for me. So watch list. I've updated my watch list after watching all the highlights. So going to talk about a couple of players I've added and a couple of players I've removed this week. The first player I've added, quite a few of the players I've added this week are actually all pretty low in ownership. Most of them are under 5%. The first one is Jan Bednarak, the Southampton centre half. So he's only 3.9 million, and he started Hasenhüttl's first 2 games, and he's played very well. I watched that Southampton Arsenal game. It was extremely frustrating watching the game because Aubameyang had so many chances. And there was one in particular where there was a ball played across the box and Aubameyang was just about to tap it into an empty net, and Bednarak just came out of nowhere with an excellent challenge to deny him. So that was very frustrating. But you know, he did catch the eye, Bednarak, and it looks like he could nail down a place under the new manager. Southampton, you know, The next two fixtures are okay, but they do have a bit of a mixed bag. I think they've got Chelsea and City, 20 and 21. So maybe not at the moment, Bednarak, but he's definitely one to keep an eye on, one for the watch list. And if he does keep his place, he's going to be a nice cheap option in defence to free up some funds. Another budget-friendly player, 4.3 million midfielder, Gibbs White at Wolves. Got his first start of the season. And I know Wolves fans have high hopes for this guy. And he looks a real talent from what I've seen of him, in his cameo so far this season. So he's another one to add to the watch list. And if he can get regular starts, even if he just gets the odd start and gets 30 minutes in all the other games, he's going to be an excellent fifth midfield option for our benches, because all you want is 1 or 2 points from him as your third sub. For me, I've got Danny Ward stinking up my bench, so if the opportunity arises in a couple of weeks and Gibbs White is getting game time for Wolves, I'll make that switch and just use him as a third sub every week. Another player, Kevin De Bruyne, got back on the pitch for Man City. He's 9.7 million, so I think he's the same price as Sané now. I think Sané's gone up to 9.7 as well last night. De Bruyne is only owned by 3.3% of managers, so he's likely to play in the Cup tonight. I think Pep said he would play in the Cup tonight. Will he play against Palace? He probably will, I would imagine. He'll probably play maybe 70-80 minutes tonight, and I would expect him to play against Palace as well then. So Kevin De Bruyne is another City option for us to consider now. And again, it's that ownership. It's very, very attractive as a differential. And we know from the past what KDB can do. But with a player coming back from injury, I'm never in a rush to get them back in. I like to give them a bit of time to get up to speed. We seen it with Aguero last week. We knew that Aguero was going to be back, but we didn't know if he was going to be fit to start. I know some people brought him in, but I never would have brought Aguero in last week because he was coming back from injury. There's always that chance that they start on the bench, which was the case with Aguero. So again, that could happen with KDB. He could play tonight, and we could see him on the bench again. They may just ease him back in. He has had a lot of injuries this season. I don't think he's got 90 minutes in the league at all yet this year. So surely they're going to be careful with him because he's such a key player for them. But he's on the watch list, maybe for a couple of weeks' time. I mentioned Danny Ings, so he's back on my watch list. I owned him earlier in the season, and I was quite reluctant to let him go. It was pretty frustrating that he picked up his injury, because I'm a big fan of Danny Ings. He's a very clinical striker, and I always fancy him if he gets a chance. He's up there with anybody in the league, I think, when it comes to finishing. So he's only priced at 5.4 million, so he's an absolute bargain. Scored a brace against Arsenal, two great headers. The Arsenal defence was pretty patched up defence. Koscielny looks like an old man now. So how much can we read into the brace? I don't know, but he did look good earlier in the season as well. But the thing I like about Ings is he's going to fit into this system, Hasenhüttl's high press and high energy system, better than any of the other Southampton strikers. Ings played under Klopp as well, although he was injured most of the time. But he's going to know how to play in the system, and I think Hasenhüttl's already been talking up Ings. And Ings has said, he likes that system. I think I seen a quote from him saying, I think Ings said something like he gets as much satisfaction as winning the ball back from scoring a goal, which I find pretty bizarre. But it's good signs. He's going to be the main man there at Southampton now, and Southampton they've got Huddersfield next away, which is not a bad fixture, and then they've got West Ham at home again. You could see him getting something there. So I think if I'm going to get Ings, I want to get him for those two fixtures, because then it's Man City and Chelsea. So you could bench him in those two games, but I'd like to get him in for the two for this weekend and for Boxing Day as well. The worry with Ings is always fitness. He's had his serious injuries in the past, and he seems to be one of these players who suffers from niggling injuries as well. They're probably linked. Those two, the long term ones and the short term ones. So if I get him in, I'm just going to hope that he can stay fit. So yeah, the big news today was Jose Mourinho getting sacked, and automatically that makes us FPL managers look towards United assets now. They're a team I haven't owned any of them all season, but a managerial change can make a big difference. And there's a couple of players, I'll be interested to see how they do now under the new manager, whoever that's going to be. I won't be getting any of them in yet until I see, how they set up under the new manager, because we never know who he's going to favour, especially in defensive things like that. There's been so much chopping and changing by Mourinho. We need to see who the new manager is going to favour, as a back four, and who's going to play in midfield and things like that. So Rashford, Martial, maybe even Pogba, and Luke Shaw are probably the four that would interest me most. But again, I'm just going to wait and see how they do under the new manager. Fixtures are excellent. That's the thing about United. It's good timing for us FPL managers, for a new manager to come in. They've got Cardiff, Huddersfield, Bournemouth, Newcastle and Spurs. So those who are brave enough to take the plunge right away for this weekend on someone like Rashford or Martial, it could be fruitful. But I'm just going to wait, and it's just a watch list for those players for me at the moment. Moving on to a couple of players I've removed this week from the watch list. The City defender Laporte. City have only kept 1 clean sheet in 7 now, so I'm not interested in investing 6 odd million for Laporte when there's better, cheaper options. Kiko Femenia, I've removed him as well. Again, clean sheets is the problem. Watford have 0 clean sheets in 7, and Janmat there's always a threat of Janmat coming back in for Kiko as well, so I'm happy enough just to avoid Kiko. Sigurdsson as well. Sigurdsson's last 4 games are 2-2-0-2, so he's an FPL legend, but he's fallen off the horse in recent times. And Richarlison's the main man at Everton. I've got Richarlison, and I'm hoping that I can keep the Brazilian for the rest of the season. And Sigurdsson has just gone off my radar now. Good chance he loses penalties as well after missing a couple, so his appeal has diminished, and I think Richarlison is the main man there now. Bernardo Silva is another one I've removed. He's just not as explosive as the other assets. I'm pretty sure he's got 3 blanks in a row now. And when you get a Man City player, you don't really expect blanks 3 games in a row. Kevin De Bruyne is back as well, so maybe that'll affect Bernardo's game time. So I'm not interested. It's KDB, Sterling and Sané are the Man City midfielders that I want. So Bernardo is gone. And the last player I've removed this week is Isaac Success. He was getting a lot of game time, but he was benched at the weekend for Deulofeu, so that ends my interest in Isaac Success. If I was to go budget striker, to go 3-5-2, I'd probably go Camera rather than Success now, but I don't really like either of them, to be honest. Moving on to some Twitter questions. I've picked out 5 of the best to cover some of the main talking points this week. So thanks for all those questions, folks. The first one is from Tom Campbell. What is my recommended combination alongside Jimenez up front for the next few game weeks? So what are we looking at for strikers for the next, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks? So I've got Jimenez. Jimenez is going nowhere. He's been great value since I brought him in. I brought him in about 4 weeks ago. He's been a real gem. I've got Aubameyang as well, who I've still got faith in Aubameyang, despite the pain he caused me over the last 3 weeks since I've had him. Arsenal have Burnley at home this weekend and then Brighton away, so 2 excellent fixtures, and I just feel now is probably not the right time to sell Aubameyang. It could, I could see him punishing sellers. So this feels like a situation where patience could be rewarded, and I'm going to give Aubameyang time to deliver. I didn't bring him in just for 3 game weeks, so I'm going to give him 2 more. I'm going to give him Burnley and Brighton to see what he can do there. So Tom is asking, who else? So I would say Jimenez, I would say Aubameyang, and then the third one, I would probably say Danny Ings. I've mentioned him already. That's the front 3 I'm probably looking at trying to get to. I've got Mitrovic at the moment, but as I said, I'm already losing patience after 1 game week. So I may make a Mitrovic to Ings switch this week. So that would be my tip for a front 3 for Christmas is Jimenez, Aubameyang and Danny Ings. Now it's different for people who have Harry Kane. It's you've got to ask yourself the question: do you keep him or do you sell him? And it's probably a bit like Aubameyang. I think I would. It's hard for me to answer a Kane question because I don't own him. and I haven't owned him all season. But I do think if I owned him, I would probably give him more time as well. Spurs fixtures are Everton, Bournemouth, Wolves, Cardiff. 4 games where Kane could do well. Even though he hasn't been passing my eye test, and I'm not really interested. But it's different if you already own him, and I think I probably would give him more time as well. Next question was from Nick Donnelly. Is Felipe Anderson and Snodgrass, is the double up viable? So a lot of people asked me this last week. Some of my patrons were asking me about the Felipe Anderson Snodgrass double up, and I said to them that I wasn't really keen on the midfield West Ham double up, but having watched them again at the weekend, there's no reason not to really. They just keep doing it. They keep scoring goals. West Ham have been great, and those two guys are smashing it. So a lot of people probably already have Felipe Anderson and maybe are looking at Snodgrass as well. And I think for the next 4 weeks it is viable. West Ham have Watford, Southampton, Burnley and Brighton in the next 4. So you could just write out those 4 fixtures with Anderson and Snodgrass, and then maybe look to move away from one of them. Every time I watch Anderson, he impresses me more and more. I don't see him being at West Ham for too long. Watching him this season, he reminds me a bit of Payet when he was there. He just runs the show, and he's got everything. Every time watching that Fulham game, every time he got the ball and went forward, I just thought, Anderson's going to score here, or Anderson's going to get an assist. He really was the standout performer in that game. And Snodgrass is just playing out of his skin as well, and he's excellent value. He's 2 million less than Anderson. So if I'm in a situation where I've got Fabianski and Balbuena, so I would have to choose one or the other of Snodgrass and Anderson, and I think I probably would go with the budget option and save the 2 million on Snodgrass if I was doing it for the next 4 weeks. But Anderson feels like a player who can be brought in and possibly kept for the rest of the season, so he could be a shrewd acquisition as well. Just while I'm on West Ham, when I got in Mitrovic last week, I weighed up Chicharito as well. But the main reason I didn't go for Chicharito was because that would have blocked a move for Anderson or Snodgrass for me. And I'm kind of glad I didn't now, because there's talk that Arnie could be back sooner than we expected. There's talk that Arnie could play on the 27th, which is Gameweek 19. So that could affect Chicharito's minutes over the next few weeks. So I'm happy enough that I've left the midfield spot free, that I can opt for one of Anderson or Snodgrass if I want to. Next question is from Alex Lewis. Is Fabianski a set and forget option until the end of the season? So he does look like it at the moment. I'm an owner, and I'm a very happy owner. I brought him in for Patricio a couple of weeks ago, and he's done great. And I'm hoping that I can just keep Fabianski now for the rest of the season and not have to worry about making transfers for goalkeepers, because it's something, it's not very exciting changing your goalkeeper, and you don't really want to change your goalkeeper very often. You want to focus on your midfield and attack with transfer. So the signs are good for Fabianski. The fixtures are still good, so he's definitely a hold for the next 4 weeks at least. And he's the kind of player he's the kind of goalkeeper you can play him in the big games as well, because he racks up a lot of save points, and he does well in the BPS as well. So I am hoping that I can just keep him until Game Week 38 and not have to worry about goalkeepers for the rest of the season. Question 4 was from FPL Capitan. Is it time to stack the midfield? So is it time to invest all our cash and go with a power 5 in midfield? So I'm in a 3-4-3 at the moment. But in the back of my mind, over Christmas, I'm thinking about moving to a 3-5-2, because I do feel that is, the midfield is where the value is. There's so many options in midfield that I want, and I'm probably going to move to cheap strikers. I'm probably going to give Aubameyang another 2 weeks, and if he doesn't deliver in those 2 games, big hauls, I'm probably going to ship him for a budget striker. So that would give me possibly, that it could be a strike force of Jimenez, Ings, and someone like Wilson, and then you could go five strong midfielders then. Another option is obviously to get someone like Camara or Success, and then go even heavier in midfield. But I kind of like the idea of having Ings instead of Success or Camera, because it's another option you can play each week. You're probably going to have a very good first sub then. You're looking at probably a strong front eight rather than having a bench fodder midfielder or striker. So yeah, I do think the time is to move Cash into midfield. It's something I'm going to look at probably doing over the next couple of weeks. But for me, it all kind of depends on what Aubameyang does. If he stays quiet, I'll definitely move to probably a 3-5-2. Or it's probably going to be more of a 3-5-2, 3-4-3 hybrid with Danny Ings, because you could bench Danny Ings, against the likes of City and Chelsea, and then play whoever the fifth midfielder is, or even a defender like Wan-Bissaka or Balbuena. I think they rotate quite well with Danny Ings, so that's where I'm thinking at the moment. So I do think the likes of, in midfield we've got Hazard, Sterling, Sané, Richarlison, Felipe Anderson. You've got Spurs midfielders. There's so many options there, and I do think 5 midfielders is the way to go. And at the end of the day, they get an extra point for a goal, and they get a clean sheet point as well. So it's a no-brainer, really. Maybe it's something we should have all been doing since game week 1. I know I'm probably set in my ways. I'm always drawn towards 3-4-3, but a lot of managers this season, look at Mark Sutherland. He's been rolling with budget strikers for quite a while now, and he's probably top 5,000. So he was ahead of the game. Maybe we can all take note of that, and maybe times are changing. Maybe 5 midfielders will be the way to go from now on. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Last question is from Hogsrud. I think I might have covered some of this already. He's asking, should we stay patient with Kane? This is supposed to be his time of the year. He shines. Do I believe this? And it's something I don't really ever pay attention to. A lot of people say, Kane did really well at Christmas last year. He's going to do well at Christmas this year. This is his time of year to shine. I just don't believe any of that stuff. It's it's a completely new season. I don't think the time of year affects how Harry Kane plays. And there's so many different factors, thrown into the mix. And I mentioned on the Who Got the Assist podcast that I always take each new season as a clean slate, and I don't really look on previous seasons' performances when I'm making my decisions. And a lot of people getting Harry Kane this season, a lot of it's probably down to what he's done in the past, but I want to, I judge him on what he's doing this season, and that's kind of why I went for Aubameyang instead. I just thought Aubameyang was a better option this season than Harry Kane. So that's where I stand with Kane. I'm still not interested. I think there's better value even in the likes of Dele Alli and Son. I think they could be better value over Christmas. So if I go Spurs, it's going to be a midfielder most likely. Thanks for the questions, folks. Moving into captaincy for game week 18. There's a lot of options this week. The Man City are at home to Palace. Aubameyang plays Burnley at home. Hazard's got Leicester at home. Salah plays Wolves away. And Harry Kane plays Everton away. So you could make a case for any one of those to be a captain this week. For me though, I'm not going to look past the Man City players. I'm going to talk about my transfers after this, and you can probably tell already what my plans are going to be. When I'm mentioning City players for captaincy, I don't have any at the moment, but that's not going to be the case by the time game week 18 rolls around. Aubameyang at home to Burnley. If you don't have Man City midfielders, I think he's a good option as well. I just find it hard to trust him after watching him at the weekend, frustrating me. Hazard at home to Leicester. Leicester are pretty good defensively, so that would probably put me off the Hazard captaincy this week. Hazard has a knock, but it looks like he'll be okay for the weekend. Salah away at Wolves. He could do well, but Wolves have been pretty good defensively as well. I think they're posting good stats defensively, so they could frustrate Salah. We don't know, so that would probably put me off Salah as well this week. And Kane, Everton away, it's not an easy fixture. So I don't always go for a home captain, but I do probably do it more often than not. So I'm looking at City, and I'm looking at Aubameyang, but for me it's probably going to be whichever Man City midfielder I bring in. So that brings me on to transfers. I've got 2 free transfers, and I'm considering doing a -4. So I'm weighing up a possible, a bit of surgery, 3 transfers. And what it is losing Mo Salah. So, I've been asking myself this question for weeks, every week, almost for the last couple of weeks. Should I lose Mo Salah to get a Man City midfielder? And I probably should have done it before the United game. I did consider going Salah to Sterling after his hat-trick, and I decided against it, and then I seen that Sterling was benched, and I thought, great, I've made a great decision here not doing Salah to Sterling. But then, of course, Sterling still manages to outscore him despite starting the game on the bench. So Sterling is top of my most wanted list, and I think this could be the week where I finally bite the bullet and get rid of Salah and get Raheem Sterling and captain Sterling then against Palace. So the -4 would be Salah to Sterling, Mitrovic out after just 1 week to Danny Ings, and Danny Ings would enable me to do Maddison to Sané. So that's where the big attraction is in selling Mitrovic after just 1 week. It would give me it would give me Sterling and Sané, which appeals to me. City have good fixtures. Fixtures don't really matter for City anyway. They blow most teams away, but they do have Palace next at home. Then it's Leicester, Southampton, tough one against Liverpool, and then it's Wolves. Man City have been hurting me this season, and I want to get in some of their assets. So when you're buying one, why not get two for the price of one? That's the way I'm looking at it. I'm going to get Sterling and Sané probably this week. A lot depends on the cup tonight. Who plays. If Sané was to play 90 minutes tonight, it might put me off getting him. If Sterling plays 90 minutes, I'll still probably go and get him anyway, because he's had 2 rests in the league now. So I would be very surprised to see him benched against Crystal Palace this weekend. So I think he's a pretty safe captaincy option this week, and he's the guy I want to captain this week. So even if I decide against Sané, I'm probably pretty set on getting Sterling in this week for Salah. Obviously, it's only Tuesday, and things change quickly in FPL, so I could change my mind, but that's where I'm leaning towards at the moment. The other option is obviously to keep Mo Salah and captain him against Wolves, but I don't have good feelings about that Wolves away game for Liverpool. I think Wolves could frustrate them, so I don't see a monster haul for Salah in that one, which is probably making it a bit easier for me to maybe lose him. But obviously that could come back and bite me. We know Salah is Salah, and he could get another 15-20 points, but I'm still not convinced by him this season. I think the hat-trick against Bournemouth has, it makes us forget, about what he's been like for the most part of the season. And that hat-trick was a gift. Steve Cook gave us 21 points that week, so I'll be forever grateful to Steve Cook for that. But I am leaning towards selling Salah. Aubameyang as well. I don't want to. I'm not really thinking about selling Aubameyang, as I mentioned. I could do, if I wanted to keep Salah, I could sell Aubameyang to get Sterling, but I don't want to sell Aubameyang. I like the idea of having Hazard, Aubameyang, Sané and Sterling for the Christmas period. So that's what I'm looking at. A couple of things to mention before I wrap up the podcast. I joined the lads, the Who Got the Assist lads, for their podcast last night, their Christmas special. So that's a very good podcast. So make sure you check that one out as well this week. I'd probably go into a lot more detail on some of the stuff I've mentioned here on this one. So check that out. You'll find them on all the usual platforms. On Twitter, I think they're HGTA_FPL. I think I'm right on that one. Another thing to mention is there on Thursday there's an exciting new FPL project launching, 90 minutes at a time. So on Twitter they are 90 Matt. Keep an eye out for that. It's going to be a digital FPL monthly magazine supplement. I'm not sure what they're calling it, but I've done an article for that one. They've put together a team of very good writers for the first edition of that, and I've done an article on the 5 most wanted, so Hazard, Salah, Sterling, Kane and Aubameyang, and I've ranked them 1 to 5 for the Christmas period. So keep an eye out for that on Thursday. I'll do a couple of tweets and retweets on that anyway. This will be my last podcast until the new year. I'm I'm travelling back to Ireland on Friday for Christmas, so I haven't been back to see the family since the wedding in July, so I'm really looking forward to going home, catching up with family and friends, and I'm going to take a complete break from social media and FPL, and well, I'm still going to obviously look after my own team in FPL, but I'm going to take a break. So this Friday will be my last day on Twitter until the new year. I just feel, I need to take a break. I need to recharge the batteries. December has been a very, very draining month. Very intense with so many games thick and fast, and been up and down to London a couple of times and things like that. So I'm looking forward to taking a break for Christmas and just spending time with the family and friends. The eye test podcast as well, I'll get them back up and running in the new year. It was quite hard in December to get as many of them done as I would like to, because the games are just coming so thick and fast. But in the new year, I'm going to make them a more regular thing. Hopefully do 3 or 4 each weekend. When things calm down again and we just go back to regular game week. So they've been well received, and I think they are quite helpful for people who don't get to see the game. So I will continue with them in the new year as well. One other thing I wanted to mention today, I came across some news today that Kenneth Tang, who is one of the best FPL managers in the world, he was on the FPL the Fantasy Football Scout Meet the Manager series a couple of weeks ago, and that was an excellent watch. But I just read today that he's suffering with illness, so I just wanted to wish him very well in his recovery, and hopefully that he does get through his battle, and that he continues to school us in FPL for years to come. So I just wanted to give Kenneth a shout out and send him my best wishes there. All I'm left to say is thanks for following me this year. Thanks for listening to the podcasts. I appreciate all the support, the likes, the retweets, everything else. Really enjoying what I'm doing this season, and I want to give a special thank you to my patrons, who without them I wouldn't be able to do what I do full time. So really a special thanks to my patrons as well for that. And I want to just wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and hopefully I hope you get plenty of green arrows from Santa Claus over the next couple of weeks. So I'll talk to you all in early January. Thanks again, folks.